my birthday party, Eleanor whispered something to Mike, and I could tell his expression changed. Before I could even react, he slapped me, and I went crashing to the floor. I was stunned, just lying there as he walked off, until I let out a slow chuckle. He froze, his face totally pale. The email on my screen glowed like a confession. The Harrington Trust payout needs you to stay married for at least 5 years, with no separation papers filed. My hand shook as I sent it to my encrypted server, the last piece falling into place. Behind me, the gray Boston dawn came through the designer curtains. Mike had insisted on curtains that cost more than my first car. I slammed my laptop shut right as the bathroom door opened. Steam billowed out as Mike came out, a towel wrapped around his waist, still looking great at 37. But his eyes had that empty look I'd been noticing for months. "Happy birthday, Anna," he said, the words practiced and hollow. He leaned in to kiss my cheek. His lips were cool, even after a hot shower. "Eleanor's excited for tonight. Before we begin, I want to thank you all for being part of this amazing journey. If you're liking these empowerment stories, think about subscribing. It's totally free, and it helps us build this awesome community. Let's dive in." "I'm sure she is," I thought, but replied with practiced warmth. It was so nice of Eleanor to set everything up. My voice, which I'd perfected in court to persuade juries, didn't show the ice building up inside me. "What are you working on?" he asked, looking at my closed laptop. "Just going over the Westbrook merger documents," I lied smoothly. "Even birthday girls don't get days off at Caldwell and Pierce." He just nodded, accepting it without question. When we first met 6 years ago, he'd have teased me about being a workaholic, maybe even tried to get me back to bed. That Mike was gone now, replaced by this polished robot who reacted to his family's signals like a trained animal. While he got dressed for his morning at the family office, I went into my walk-in closet, the only spot in our Beacon Hill brownstone without cameras. Eleanor had put in the surveillance system last year during our remodel, a thoughtful security step for her cherished son and daughter-in-law. Only I knew about the tiny devices I'd found during a thorough search 3 months prior. Only I knew I'd left them working but fed them a loop of regular activity whenever I wanted privacy. Inside the closet, I pressed my finger against a nearly invisible seam in the wall. A panel slid open, showing a water-resistant case with hard drives, a backup laptop, and 3 burner phones inside. My insurance policy, my weapon. For 4 years, I'd been the ideal addition to the Harrington family, a Harvard law grad, a rising star at Boston's top corporate law firm, a charity board member, and a devoted wife to Mike Harrington, heir to one of New England's oldest fortunes. The society pages loved us. Eleanor paraded me around at every event like a prized racehorse. Nobody suspected that behind my careful makeup and designer clothes, I was building a case to bring the Harrington empire crashing down. It started with things I noticed that didn't add up while helping Mike review some family business papers, numbers that didn't make sense, and subsidiaries in countries with shady banking laws. Then came the odd meetings Mike would return from acting differently, more withdrawn, less sure of himself. The way Eleanor would whisper things in his ear at family gatherings, changing his mood instantly. I'd spent 3 years defending companies from fraud accusations. I knew what financial manipulation looked like. I knew what psychological control looked like too. The day I found Mike staring blankly at a video his cousin Liam sent was when I seriously started my secret investigation. That night, I bought my first burner phone with my hidden cash. I took out a micro SD card and put it into my secure phone. The encrypted files had everything: bank transfers to offshore accounts, recordings of family meetings where they openly discussed conditioning, Mike's reactions, proof of market manipulation, and bribes to federal officials. My fingers scrolled to the newest file, a photo taken yesterday of Dr. Miller, Mike's supposed childhood therapist, meeting Eleanor at her Back Bay home. The same guy mentioned in documents as a behavioral consultant and paid 30 on monthly from a Harrington shell company. I checked my watch, 7:0158 a.m. Almost time to be Anna Harrington again. I put everything back, sealed the compartment, and picked a conservative St. John suit for court that morning. The Prescott hearing would be over by noon, giving me time to change for my birthday party at Eleanor's favorite harborside restaurant. While putting on my makeup, I practiced my expressions in the mirror, delighted surprise, warm appreciation, and devoted affection. The same expressions I'd worn for years while gathering evidence against the people who'd hollowed out my husband and built a criminal enterprise behind a fake charitable front. Mike appeared in the doorway, perfectly dressed in a custom suit, his hair styled just right. Once, seeing him like this would have made my heart beat faster. Now, I just noted the changes in him. His pupils were a bit smaller, there was a tiny delay before he reacted emotionally, and his jaw was newly tense. "You look beautiful," he said, like a robot. "Thanks, darling." I stood up and straightened his already perfect tie, searching his eyes for any hint of the man I married. Nothing. "I'll see you tonight. Don't let Eleanor overdo it with the surprises." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "She just wants everything to be perfect for you." Perfect. The Harringtons' favorite word. Their perfect family, perfect business, perfect control. As I got my briefcase and court stuff ready, my phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Wear the blue Valentino tonight. Mike loves you in that color." Another order disguised as motherly advice. I texted back a thankful reply, then chose the crimson Dior I'd been saving for a special event. Small acts of defiance kept me sane while I built my case. In the Uber to the courthouse, I reviewed my real casework, compartmentalizing it just like I'd learned. By day, I was still Anna Harrington, a corporate defense attorney. My clients counted on me, and ironically, the skills that made me good at defending them also made me formidable in building my case against the Harringtons. On the courthouse steps, I checked my secure messaging app. My SEC contact had confirmed they got my latest intel. "We're moving on this next week," he'd written. "Need anything else from your source?" I smiled as I typed back. "One final piece is coming tonight." Eleanor had no idea that her fancy birthday trap for me would actually become the Harringtons' downfall. Tonight, at my birthday party, surrounded by Boston's elite and the family's closest allies, everything was going to change. I put my phone away and walked up the courthouse steps, my face calm, my posture confident. Inside, I was counting down the hours. The perfect facade was about to break, and I'd be there, camera phone in hand, to record every single damning moment. The Hestia Gardens shimmered like a mirage at the edge of Boston Harbor, its glass and steel architecture catching the sunset in shades of gold and crimson. Fitting, I thought, for what was going to be a bloodletting disguised as a celebration. The restaurant had a 3-month wait list, but the Harrington name got them not just a table, but the whole rooftop terrace. "Mrs. Harrington, welcome." The maitre d' practically bowed when our town car arrived. "Eleanor has been asking about you." "I'm sure she has," I murmured, taking Mike's stiff arm. He'd been quiet the whole ride, checking his watch every few minutes like he was timing his act. The elevator went smoothly up to the rooftop, and I used that time to get myself focused. My crimson Dior fit me like armor, its color a silent war declaration against Eleanor's blue Valentino order. Mike hadn't even noticed I was defying her, another sign of how detached he was. The doors opened to a scene that was clearly planned out. Crystal chandeliers hung from invisible wires, making it look like stars were floating above the harbor view. White orchids, Eleanor's signature, were everywhere, and about 50 guests were strategically placed throughout the space, all smiling with the practiced warmth of predators. "Happy birthday!" The group greeting washed over me, as fake as the orchid's perfume. Eleanor glided forward, looking grand in her midnight blue Chanel, her silver bob shining under the chandeliers. At 62, she was still striking, the grande dame of Boston society whose ruthlessness was only surpassed by how well she hid it. "Darling Anna." She hugged me, her Hermes perfume wrapping around me like chloroform. Her lips brushed my cheek as she whispered, "Blue would have looked better with Mike for the photos." "I wanted to surprise everyone," I replied, matching her steely warmth, "even on my birthday." Her eyes flashed, the first real reaction I'd seen from her in months. She recovered instantly, linking her arm through mine to show me off through my celebration. "Everyone important is here," she announced, leading me past Boston's elite, the police commissioner, 2 state senators, a federal judge, 3 university presidents. I noted each face, mentally comparing them to my files on Harrington connections. None of my law partners were there, not my closest friend from Harvard, not my mentor from my first firm. The guest list had been filtered to remove anyone genuinely connected to me, anyone who might notice if something happened to the real Anna beneath the Harrington facade. Champagne, birthday girl? Liam Harrington, Mike's cousin and the family's legal fixer, showed up at my elbow with 2 glasses. "Thanks, Liam." I took it, but didn't drink. "Good to see you here." "Wouldn't miss it," he replied, his Harvard-educated drawl barely hiding something urgent. He glanced toward the entrance, where I saw a silver-haired man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit being brought in. I watched Liam stop the newcomer, Dr. Miller, the childhood therapist whose methods clearly went far beyond typical treatment. This was the man who got monthly payments listed as behavioral maintenance in the Harringtons' private records. A server with appetizers gave me a perfect excuse to move closer to their conversation. "We need to speed up the timeline," Liam was saying, his back to the party. "The trustees aren't going to extend again." "Pushing the plan risks instability," Dr. Miller replied, his clinical tone clear even in a quiet conversation. "The conditioning needs more time." "We don't have that luxury anymore," Liam cut in. The contract terms are clear, if he's not fully controlled by the payout date. They noticed I was close by and smoothly switched to greeting me. Dr. Miller's handshake was quick, his eyes sizing me up with a detached, clinical look. Mrs. Harrington, happy birthday, he said. You look radiant. Thanks, Dr. Miller. Mike mentioned you might come. I lied. It's been, 15 years since you worked with him? His smile tightened. Off and on. The Harringtons are more like family than clients. How fortunate for everyone, I replied, noticing his pupils were a bit wider. He was nervous. Good. For the next hour, I moved around carefully, playing my part while watching how the room worked. Eleanor stayed at the center of it all, her laughter theatrical, her eyes always on me. Whenever Mike came near me, her attention grew, like she was watching a lab experiment. Twice I caught Dr. Miller watching us interact, making quiet notes on his phone. Great turnout, Judge Evans, one of the Harringtons' oldest allies, remarked. Eleanor definitely knows how to celebrate family. Indeed, I agreed, though I'm surprised my law colleagues couldn't make it. Exclusive guest list, he chuckled. Eleanor was very specific about keeping this intimate. By intimate, he meant controlled. A feeling of vulnerability prickled the back of my neck. This party was totally sealed off. Anyone here would back the Harringtons if anything happened to me. The party moved to dinner, with Eleanor tactically seating everyone, Mike to my right, her at the head of the table, Dr. Miller directly across from me, his eyes clinically sizing up every interaction between Mike and me. Eleanor tapped her crystal glass, making everyone quiet. Before we eat, a toast to my beloved daughter-in-law. She stood up, taking control of the room with practiced authority. 5 years ago, Mike brought home this brilliant, beautiful attorney, and I knew right away she was special. Her eyes met mine. They were warm on the surface but icy underneath. Anna has become everything the Harrington family values, loyal, discreet, and committed to our legacy. The crowd murmured their approval. I kept my grateful smile, translating her real message in my head. We own you. Use. To Anna. Eleanor raised her glass. May this 35th year be transformative. The word hung in the air, like a promise or a threat. As servers brought out the first course, Eleanor glided behind my chair, putting her manicured hands on my shoulders. To anyone watching, it looked like a motherly gesture. I felt the predatory pressure of her grip. Such a perfect evening, she murmured, her voice just loud enough for me to hear. And after dinner, there'll be a very special announcement about the family's future. Her fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on my shoulder before she moved away, leaving the lingering scent of her perfume and the distinct feeling of a trap about to spring. I glanced at Mike, seeing his eyes fixed on his water glass, fingers tapping a rhythmic pattern I'd noted, a behavior that always came after Eleanor's private talks with him. Whatever they'd planned for tonight was speeding up. The gifts would be presented after the main course, Eleanor's chosen time for whatever announcement she'd arranged. I touched the slim phone in my clutch, making sure it was ready to record. The federal agents I'd been working with were on standby, waiting for my signal. The first course came, oysters arranged in a perfect circle. Eleanor beamed at me from the head of the table, raising her glass in another silent toast. I smiled back, raising my untouched champagne. Let the games begin. The main course plates were taken away, leaving an expectant quiet. Eleanor nodded to the waitstaff, who started setting up a fancy display of wrapped gifts on a marble-top table rolled to the center of the terrace, all part of the show. The gifts, I suspected, were as empty as the smiles around me. Before dessert, Eleanor announced, easily commanding the room, we have to properly honor our birthday girl. The guests formed a perfect semicircle, with smartphones appearing in their manicured hands. In previous years, I might have felt awkward being the center of attention. Tonight, I welcomed every camera. Mike guided me to the gift table with a hand pressed firmly against the small of my back. His touch, once warm and comforting, now felt mechanical, like a practiced gesture instead of a real connection. Start with this one, Eleanor instructed, handing me a small box wrapped in Tiffany blue. A collective murmur of appreciation spread through the group. I took it with a practiced smile, deliberately unwrapping it. Inside, on white satin, lay a platinum bracelet covered in diamonds. A beautiful handcuff. It's lovely, I said, holding it up for the needed photos. Mike, help your wife put it on, Eleanor directed. As he put it on my wrist, I felt its weight, another link in their chain. The performance went on with several more gifts. All expensive, all chosen to show I was a Harrington possession, not an individual. A designer handbag, a weekend at their Martha's Vineyard estate, a donation in my name to the Harrington Foundation. And now, Eleanor's voice got dramatically softer. For our special announcement, She glided forward, her movements so perfectly timed it seemed choreographed. The scent of her Hermes perfume reached me a moment before she did, wrapping around me like an invisible constrictor. The room quieted, all eyes on us, Eleanor, Mike and me, set up like pieces on a chessboard. Her hand rested on Mike's shoulder, her fingers digging in slightly at exact pressure points I'd noted in my research on physical triggers. Anna has been such a treasure to our family, Eleanor began, her voice dripping with fake warmth. Devoted, supportive, the perfect partner for Mike during these 5 critical years of his career. 5 years. The exact time frame mentioned in the trust payout conditions. Eleanor's eyes gleamed as she leaned closer to Mike, her lips almost touching his ear. I quietly turned on the recording function on my phone. Remember your duty, she whispered, though the words still carried in the quiet room. Protect what's ours. I watched it happen in slow motion. Mike's pupils shrank to tiny points. His jaw went slack for a moment, then tightened into a hard line. The slight tremor in his left hand stopped completely. Then came the words, said in a flat tone I'd never heard from him before. You've betrayed us. Everyone in the room held their breath. Eleanor stepped back, satisfaction in her eyes as she watched her creation perform. What do you mean, Mike? I asked, my voice steady even with the electric anticipation rushing through me. We know about the investigation, he went on, each word measured and programmed. About the files, your contacts with the SEC. Gasps went through the crowd, exactly as I'd expected. Eleanor wanted witnesses to my supposed betrayal, building a story before the federal case could start. What I hadn't totally expected was what happened next. Mike's arm moved incredibly fast. The sound of the slap echoed across the terrace like a gunshot, then everything went completely silent. The impact knocked me sideways against the marble table. I tasted blood as my lips split. I lay there, the cool floor pressing against my cheek, feeling the sting spread across my face. For 3 heartbeats, nothing moved. Boston's elite stood frozen, watching a crack appear in the perfect Harrington facade. Then, as Eleanor moved to speak, to twist this into another story. Poor Mike, pushed to the limit by his treacherous wife, something unexpected occurred. I laughed. It started small, a little sound bubble escaping my bloodied lips. Then it grew, echoing across the stunned crowd. I pushed myself up, my crimson Dior stained with blood, and kept laughing. Clear, real laughter that cut through the fake atmosphere like a knife. Perfect timing, Eleanor, I said, my voice carrying across the silent terrace. Every smartphone was still up, still recording. You couldn't have scripted it better if you tried. Brenda's calm face looked confused. This wasn't supposed to happen. The disgraced wife was supposed to shrink, beg, or maybe weakly threaten before getting kicked out. Leo, Brenda snapped. Help your wife up, she's clearly not well. But Leo just stood there, still, as horror filled his eyes and his programming broke. He stared at his hand like it was somebody else's. What did I just do? He whispered, his blank stare fading. Sarah. I stood up on my own, dabbing my cut lip with a white napkin. The bright blood spread on it like a Japanese painting. You guys should check your phones, I calmly told everyone there. You all just saw and recorded a perfect example of the conditioning program. It's the same one from the files I've been collecting for years. I turned to face Brenda, enjoying how she started to lose her cool. 5 years, Brenda. That's how long Leo needed to be married to get his grandpa's trust. A stable marriage for 5 years. I smiled, tasting the blood. But hitting someone in front of witnesses usually makes divorce way harder, right? She suddenly understood, and then I saw something new in her eyes. Fear. You did this on purpose, she hissed. You egged us on. I didn't need to, I replied. You've been conditioning Leo for years. All I had to do was wait and take notes. I pointed to the shocked crowd and their raised phones. And now, so has everyone else. The pieces I'd collected for years. The money fraud. The mind games, how they controlled Leo, were just proven true by what they did right in front of the powerful people they built up. My phone's sending some interesting data to a few agencies right now, I went on, like it was no big deal, including proof of how Dr. Alex Stone here helped train Leo to react to certain cues. I nodded at the therapist, who looked really pale. The physical reactions programming was super effective, wouldn't you say, doctor? Someone's phone chimed with a news alert, then another and another. My dead man's switch went off the second my phone's GPS felt a hit, like a physical attack, sending all my evidence to the police and some news places. Brenda's whole empire wasn't just cracking, it was falling apart right then and there, in front of the very people she'd manipulated for decades. And as I stood there, blood on my lips and feeling victorious, I knew there was no turning back. You can't possibly, Brenda started, but stopped cold when her phone chimed with the same news alert spreading through the party. Leo stood frozen, staring at his hand like it was someone else's, slowly realizing the horror of what he'd done. His programming was falling apart, and cracks showed in the fake person they'd made him into. Sarah, I didn't mean to. I don't know why His voice broke and real feelings came through the conditioning. I know you didn't, I said softly, talking to him directly for the first time in months. That's exactly what I mean. I turned to the stunned crowd, these powerful folks who'd been the family's protectors for decades. The blood on my lip gave me a weird power, like I was speaking undeniable truth. For anyone checking your phones, yeah, that alert is about the Harrington family, I confirmed, my voice, used to courtrooms, carrying clearly across the patio. What you just saw is the result of a 5-year investigation into one of Boston's most complex criminal setups. Judge Miller's face turned pale. Senator Carter was already moving towards the exit. I looked each of them in the eye, making sure they knew their part in this was also recorded. The Harrington Foundation laundered around $340 million through their charity stuff, I went on, moving money meant for education into overseas accounts run by fake companies in the Cayman Islands and Singapore. Brenda was visibly losing her cool now, her perfect hand clutching her throat where her pulse beat fast under her diamond necklace. You have no proof, she hissed, but her eyes quickly looked at Dr. Alex Stone, who was slowly moving toward the exit. Dr. Stone, maybe you'd like to tell everyone about Project Sentinel, I called out, and he stopped. The behavior program you've been using on Leo since he was 12, made to make him totally follow family orders. Stone froze, losing his calm professional look as 50 pairs of eyes looked at him. That's private therapy info, he stammered, using fancy words to try and hide. Therapy? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Is that what you call training a kid to react to certain physical and verbal cues? Programming responses that take over his own free will? I pointed to Leo, who had dropped into a chair, his face in his hands. Would you care to explain the 30,000 monthly payments listed as behavior maintenance in their private books? I turned back to the crowd, using every trick I learned in court to keep them hooked. My evidence, which the SEC, FBI, and Boston Globe now have, includes over 2,000 documents on money fraud, not paying taxes, messing with the market, and worst of all, mentally abusing Leo Harrington to keep the family money. Mr. Davis stepped forward, using his most official lawyer voice. These are crazy claims from an angry wife. If there was any truth, the Westlake deal would. I cut him off, mentioning a deal that had been big news last year. Insider trading from blackmailing an SEC official. The papers show the original talks, payments to fake companies, and the exact trades that happened after. Mr. Davis's confident look wavered when I named the exact deal. I kept going, no mercy. That big charity donation to Boston Children's Hospital last year, the one all the papers praised? 87% of that money was sent through 3 different foundations before ending up in an account Brenda Harrington controlled in Zurich. I looked Brenda right in the eye. Account number 8947721334412, opened as Helen Marin, your mom's maiden name. The exact details made everyone in the crowd quiet. People were using their phones not just for alerts, but to look up more info. The evidence I'd gathered for years was becoming public knowledge right then. Brenda, always thinking strategically, tried to get control of the story again. Sarah's been under huge pressure with her cases, she started, sounding concerned. We've been worried about her mental state for months. Should we talk about the surveillance system put in our house during last year's remodel? I shot back. Or the meds put in my tea on nights I worked late on specific cases? I have blood tests showing the sedatives for months. A new murmur went through the crowd. That deliberate gaslighting was exactly what many of these powerful women in Boston's high society had gone through too. I turned to Dr. Stone, who was frozen, not knowing what to do. Dr. Stone has a choice to make tonight, I announced. The federal agents who got my evidence will be very interested in his records of the conditioning program. But, I paused on purpose, making sure he was paying close attention. I'm ready to suggest immunity if he gives full testimony about the methods and who approved them. Stone's eyes got wide at the lifeline I threw him. The same goes for anyone else here, I continued, talking to the crowd. People who come forward on their own with info will be seen very differently from those who wait for a subpoena. The Harrington group was breaking apart strategically, faster than I even thought. Already small groups formed, with whispered talks showing alliances changing like tectonic plates. Leo looked up at me, his eyes clearer than I'd seen them in months, his programming temporarily messed up by the shock. How long have you known? He asked, his voice really low. 3 years, I quietly replied. At first, I noticed little odd things about how you acted after family meetings. Then you'd space out more often. The last piece was finding Dr. Stone's name on those payment records. I never wanted to hurt you, he whispered, real pain coming through. I know, I said, and I meant it. That's why I spent 3 years building this case instead of just leaving. You weren't the only one they hurt, Leo. Brenda, seeing she was losing all control, made one last desperate try. This is crazy, Leo. Tell them, she yelled, her voice high-pitched with desperation. She's made you turn against your family after all we've done for you. After everything you've done to him, I corrected, standing up to face her. The evidence has videos of the conditioning sessions, Brenda. Sessions where you personally told Dr. Stone what behaviors to stop in your son. Brenda's face twisted, her carefully kept act finally completely breaking. He needed guidance, structure. The Harrington name had to be safe from his weakness. Her raw truth made the room go quiet. Even the FBI agents stopped, seeing her mask drop and show her awful priorities. Leo stood unsteadily, years of programming fighting with new clarity. My weakness was wanting my own life, he said, each word making him stronger. Wanting to study books, not money. Wanting to marry for love, not for some business gain. He looked at me. Was any of it real between us? Or was I just following another set of rules? That question hit me hard. Even with everything I'd found out and my anger, I couldn't bring myself to hurt him more. The start was real, I answered honestly, before they made the conditioning stronger. That's why I stuck around. I saw parts of the real you, enough to know you were as much a victim as anyone else they'd hurt. Outside, police lights lit up the night, reflecting on the harbor water. More federal agents and evidence teams were getting there. The Harrington empire was falling apart faster every minute. Brenda was officially read her rights, and she still stood tall, even as everything around her fell apart. Mr. Davis was already trying to make a deal, his lawyer brain figuring out the upsides of working with them early. Dr. Alex Stone sat by himself, writing what looked like a detailed statement, sometimes glancing at Leo, maybe with regret. I was at a crossroads. My revenge was done. The evidence I had would make sure justice was served for the money crimes, the manipulation, and the mental abuse. I could walk away now, let Leo figure out his own way through all this mess. But watching him try to deal with decades of mind games, I saw a bit of myself in his confusion. I'd spent 5 years living a double life, keeping up a perfect front while working on secret goals. We were both changed by the Harringtons' bad influence. I can help you understand what they did, I offered, surprising myself. I've got all the techniques and triggers documented. It might help you get better. Leo looked up, his face showing a mix of weakness and hope fighting with shame. After what I did to you, why would you help me? I touched my cut lip, feeling the sting. Because unlike your family, I can tell the difference between the puppets and who's pulling their strings. Around us, the Harrington empire kept spectacularly falling apart. Years of manipulation and lies now exposed to the bright light of justice. And in that mess, I made my choice. 6 months after my birthday party turned into a big reveal, I was at the federal courthouse watching Brenda Harrington walk in wearing handcuffs. Her fancy clothes and perfect makeup were gone, replaced by a prison jumpsuit and the vibe of being locked up. Still, she held her head high, refusing to even look at the people who came to see the powerful woman fall. The courtroom was full of reporters, old business partners, and most importantly, other people the Harrington family had hurt over the years. I found some through money records, and others came forward after the first news broke. Each one had their own story of being messed with, forced into things, or losing all their money. All rise. The bailiff called as Judge Kim entered. Not Judge Miller, who had stepped down right after my birthday reveal, and was now being investigated himself for his part in some shady Harrington court rulings. The court case moved with the unstoppable pace of justice finally being served. The lawyers for the state showed evidence carefully put together from my files and greatly expanded by the federal investigation that happened after. Bank records, witness statements, psych evals. The truth was laid out under the bright courtroom lights. Brenda's legal team had fallen apart in the months before. Mr. Davis turned state's evidence almost right away, choosing to save himself over family loyalty. The fancy defense lawyers they first hired quit one by one as the amount of evidence became clear. Now she sat next to a lawyer the court gave her who looked totally overwhelmed by how complicated the case was. During a break, Mia Chen, one of the forensic accountants on the case, came up to me in the hall. "We found over 480 million in stolen money," Maya said softly. "Your first estimates were low." Anna nodded, not surprised. "How about the trust?" "That's the interesting bit," Maya replied. The grandfather's first trust had rules for ethical operations that the family hid. The court's thinking about using those old rules to send the money to victims for payback. This confirmed Anna's biggest hope, that justice wasn't just about punishing the bad guys, but also helping those who got hurt. The Vera family's wealth, built by generations of lies and tricks, would now fix the harm they'd done. Each afternoon, Anna met former employees, business partners, and even family members outside the courthouse steps. They'd been sidelined for questioning Vera's methods. Everyone shared new pieces of the puzzle, showing the abuse and control went back decades before Anna got involved with the family. Ava, Leo's cousin, who lost her inheritance at 19 for not taking Vera's career advice, became a super helpful ally. Her insights into the family helped prosecutors see how the psychological manipulation was systematic. They did it to all of us, just in different ways, Ava explained during one of their meetings. But Leo got it worst after his dad passed away. Vera saw him as the main piece. Tom White's testimony was crushing for Vera's defense. For immunity, he gave detailed records of the conditioning methods, the triggers used, and Vera's exact orders about Leo's upbringing. His notes were so precise, there was no doubt the psychological abuse was intentional. Leo wasn't at the trial. He was getting treatment at a special place that helps people recover from psychological manipulation and deprogramming. His legal situation was still tricky. He was both the one who did it and the one it happened to. The slap that started the Vera family's fall was being looked at differently, given the conditioning records. Anna visited Leo once a month, keeping things professional while giving him info to help him recover. The man shedding his programming was thoughtful, unsure, and felt deeply guilty for what he'd done under his mother's influence. I don't know who I am without their rules, Leo admitted during a visit, sitting in the facility's garden as spring just started to show. Even what I like, food, clothes, my thoughts, I'm doubting everything. That's actually good progress, Anna told him. Your real self asks questions. The programmed self just follows orders. He managed a small, real smile, not the fake one Anna was used to from their marriage. You never stopped asking questions, did you? Not my nature, Anna replied. Maybe that's why the conditioning didn't affect me. The future of their relationship was left unsaid between them. Their marriage was built on lies, controlled from the start by Vera's schemes. Still, something real had been there briefly before the deeper programming took over. Whether that could ever be fixed, or if it even should, was an open question neither of them was ready to answer. Anna's whole life had changed. Anna quit Caldwell and Pierce. She couldn't go back to defending big companies after seeing how power corrupts even the top places. Instead, Anna started the Cognitive Liberty Legal Foundation, focusing on cases with mind games, forced control, and financial abuse. Their first clients were ex-Vera family employees who'd been forced into NDAs and bad contracts. Within 3 months, they were helping victims from other powerful families and companies using similar mind control tactics. You've pretty much made a new area of law, Anna's old mentor said when they met for coffee. Like, psychological freedom is a legal right. The foundation's work quickly went beyond just legal help. They created programs for cops, judges, and therapists to spot signs of psychological manipulation. Anna partnered with cognitive liberty advocates to push for new laws that protect against forced control. The day Vera was sentenced to 28 years in federal prison for fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy, Anna sat in the back of the courtroom, not the front. Her empire had collapsed. Justice was done. Anna's focus had already moved to the next case, the next person needing help. As the courtroom emptied, Leo came up to Anna. It was his first time showing up at the proceedings. He looked changed, thinner, in casual clothes instead of fancy suits, and his eyes had both sadness and clarity. The trustees okayed the payback plan, he said right away. Everyone they hurt will get money back. You too. Anna didn't do this for money, she replied. I know, Leo paused. That's why I asked them to send my personal share to your foundation instead. It feels right that what they wanted to control me with should now free other people. That gesture meant something huge. It was an independent choice, maybe the first truly free decision he'd made in decades. Thanks, Anna said simply. They stood there for a bit, two people changed forever by the same bad influence, now finding their own ways to get better. Your foundation's work, Leo started, then stopped. I'd like to help once I'm further along with my recovery. My experience could be useful to others. It might, Anna agreed. As they left the courthouse, not promising anything about the future, Anna realized the Vera family story was never just about exposing corruption or getting personal revenge. It became something way more meaningful, taking back real selfhood from people who'd program others like software. The path ahead would be tough, with more powerful families and institutions to face. But with every case, every client, every small win, Anna was building something. Vera, with all her money and power, never had. A legacy of freedom, not control. That, maybe, was the best kind of justice.